The Guangzhou Charge are one of the most controversial teams this offseason with the roster moves, with league analysts predicting them to go from as high as 4th all the way down to 15th. So let's get into that and whether or not they can place as high as 4th or if they'll drop as low as 15th. As far as losses, they lost 4 players and only brought back, 5 players, only brought in 3. So yeah, let's see. They lost Rise, who retired. Hoppa, of course, the off tank to the near Excelsior. I think that's a big move for the Excelsior, and I'll get more of that, of course, when I cover the Excelsior. But I think it's a big hit for the Charge. I think he was pretty solid. Like, I don't think he was one of the best maybe in the league, but I thought he was definitely above average, and that he wouldn't hurt any team he'd be on if he like went to any of the really good teams. And any of the bad ones, I think he would be a huge improvement on. So I think that's a big loss for them. I think he was a big force for them last season of why they were able to stay above the 500 point. They lost Fraggy, who hasn't joined another team yet, and Bishu. So it's Hoppa, Fraggy, and Bishu were all 3 tanks. Bishu went to the LA Gladiators. And so to bring in the season, they brought in Krong, Wyatt, and Neptuno, all 3 who are different nationalities. And I think that's going to be one of the big problems for this team this year. They all are, not all of them obviously, but a good portion of them are of various nationalities. Like Eileen and Wyatt, Chinese. Happy Rio, Chara, Shu, and Krong are all Korean. Nero is American. Neptuno is Spanish. And they even have a mixed coaching staff, of course, to help out with like all the language barriers. But I believe it was in the podcast Plat chat, they were talking about how this isn't even going to feel like home stance for this team because only 2 of them are actually from China. And other than that, for everybody else, it won't really feel like a homestand, which I think the homestands will definitely be helpful. Obviously, it's proven that it's been helpful through traditional sports. And even though it's esports, I don't know how effective it'll be in places like Guangzhou this season, when it's kind of like just going to be a neutral ground again, because there are only 2 Chinese players, and it's not even guaranteed that Waya, the second Chinese player for the Charge, will even play much. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think they'll definitely receive more support than some of the teams that are playing against them, but I don't think it'll be this like outlandish home field advantage that you might see some other teams get. So yeah, let's get into the moves now. With Hoppa gone and bringing in Krong, your only 2 tanks on the roster are Rio and Krong. I think Rio again is solid. I think everybody on this team last season, I thought they had a really solid roster, and like they finished 15th and 13th, which was good enough for 9th in the league. They barely went positive on map differential with +4. So obviously they weren't like exceptional, but in the very last stage they went 6-1 once 2-2-2 rollout was in place, and I think that's big. Obviously you can't read everything off of that one stage because there are still some changes since then to the meta and whatnot. But I think it's a big indicator of how they're gonna do. Obviously they did lose a few key pieces, but they showed they can play really well on a 2-2-2 rollout, and I think that the pickups are going to help them with that. So you still have the same DPS duo of Happy Nero, or Eileen, Happy Nero are your 3, and you can pick between those 2. All 3 of them, again, though, are different languages, and so I don't know how it's going to affect how well they can play together. But they did all right last season. I think given a whole off-season time to help improve, that they'll be able to be even better. But I don't think this is a duo that's going to like tank at all. If I look at duos in the league, I don't see either Eileen and Happy, Eileen Nero, or Nero and Happy. Either way, any way you put them, I don't see them as one of the weakest duos in the league. Like, I think that's a pretty solid lineup, and I think they have a skill ceiling though that's a bit lower than some others. But this team's definitely good enough to get you top half of the table, like just judging by the DPS so far. Back to the tanks, Rio and Krong. I have not seen enough of Krong to know how he'll play. He's coming from O2 Blast in Korea, where they did all right. In 2019, they got 2nd in Korean Contenders, 2nd in Pacific Showdown, and then 4th in Season 2 of Korea Contenders. So nothing fantastic, but they're not bad by any means. And obviously Korea Contenders is one of the harder places to do it. And so I think he'll be a solid pickup. I've heard good things about him. I've heard good things, but I just have not watched enough to personally attest to it. If he's as good as I've heard, though, you're not really losing too much from losing Hoppa. And I think it'll just depend on how they adjust the meta together, because obviously Hoppa is a good player, but I don't think he was irreplaceable. It just depends on how Krong comes in and performs. And I'm excited to watch him because I don't think there are a lot of, like, everybody's super hyped for the damage rookies this season, and there hasn't been a ton for the tanks, and Krong's one that I'm really interested in seeing, because I'm not the Chargers aren't my number one team, but I like them. And I'd like to see them perform well this season. And so I'm excited to see how he performs. But I don't know if it'll be good enough to, like, you know, carry them into a playoff spot necessarily. Your supports, this is where the big roster moves come in. They have Chara and Shu. They lost Rise. And then they gained Wyatt and Neptuno. Neptuno, obviously big name. Last season, he was on the for the Fusion still, and then he didn't maybe get as much attention last season as he did in Season 1 when they made the inaugural season playoffs and like the finals and everything. But I'm not a huge Neptuno fan. I think he's good, and I think he's an upgrade in the players they lost. But this is another just player where I think he's solid, but he's not a superstar. And I think that's kind of like overall my general feel with this team. You know what I mean? I don't see these guys being bad like ever. I don't see them like having super inconsistent days where, wow, they popped off yesterday, now today, what on earth happened? I think this will be a super solid team throughout like the entire season. I just don't see them being superstars. And so with that, I'm going to say they're going to get top 10, but not higher than top 6. I think they'll be somewhere between 7th and 10th. Probably more towards 9th, 8th, I'm going to say. I think they're a solid team. And he came from Overwatch Contenders China. And I haven't heard as good of things about this that I have Krong. I heard this is more of just a pickup for him being Chinese and like trying to get more like of that hometown support. And so I don't know how much he'll play on, even if it's at the homestands. I honestly, he didn't do great. He got 5th through 8th last season on TW1 for Overwatch Contenders China, which obviously isn't great. I know a lot of those teams over there are trying to get more like Chinese players on the roster, like Chengdu's like full Chinese roster basically, to try to get that like fan support. And I think that's cool, but I just don't know if he's a great pickup. So I imagine it'll be Neptuno, and then Chara and Shu as maybe as like one of the other DPS, or maybe vice versa. It might be Chara and Shu with Neptuno coming in every now and then. But I think that's a solid support lineup again. Not no superstars, but I think it's solid, and I think the Charge can be happy with the roster moves they made, and I think they would definitely be competing for a playoff spot this season. Because if last season the playoffs, top 6 got playoff spots, and I don't know if the Guangzhou Charge will be able to improve that much. But if you do look at last season, like 9th through 6th place seems like a good bit, but there was only one difference between the Atlanta Reign in 6th and Guangzhou Charge with 15. And so they could definitely pick up a win or two over the season more than they did last season. I think one of the big things, these pickups are good. They're solid pickups, but they're not huge improvements. One of the big things will be these not multilingual people, but like, because they don't each speak too many different languages, I guess, but you know what I mean? The people from different countries, now that they've had an entire another off-season to prepare, how much better their communication will be, how much better they'll play together, and I think that's going to be a huge part of it. Kind of like Eileen and Happy, or Eileen and Nero when you're playing them together, how they can bond. And so I'm excited for this team. I think they will do well this season. I think they'll get top 10. And I'd like to see them push for like a brink playoff spot. I was looking at that one article I was telling you about at the beginning where some analysts rank them as low as 15th and some rank them as high as 4th. So obviously it's not just me who thinks this team can have quite a good season, but there are a lot of people who think they can have a pretty bad season. And so I think it'll be exciting to see how they do. I think they will be a really interesting team to watch. And I think it'll be cool to keep an eye on Krong, who's supposed to be like a really good tank prospect. So everybody, I'm Emrat, and thanks for watching.